Hey friends, welcome back to Family Secrets and unit number 2 under the course, Secret to Growing Your Marriage. So it's the second unit in this. Uh, Let me start with asking a question. Have you ever looked at your spouse and said, what in the world is going on in their brain?
What planet are you from?
Yeah, that did some alien take her over? Did he get body snatcher taking? I mean, what happened to that person? This is not the person that I dated. This is not the person that I courted. What happened? I didn't know they acted like this. You ever had that moment? I think everyone does when they first get married. I really do. So today we're going to be talking about personality. We're going to be talking about different personalities and how the strengths and weaknesses of those things, the flaws, the characters. We want to talk about how knowing each other's personality is going to be vital to you and having the ability to get along and love each other on a level beyond just superficial. When we first got married, one of the things that we did, we looked at different areas of life. We weren't so super spiritual that we couldn't be practical. So we came across a book that someone recommended to us, and it was called Personality Plus. The author's name is Florence Littauer. I don't know if Florence is still alive or not. I think she might have passed away. There's just a tremendous amount of personality tests and books and all of that out there today. Whatever animal you are, whatever letter or color that you are, all those things are out there. But really, this book, Personality Plus, is really the granddaddy to all of those books. This is the book that started that entire niche, that entire genre. And I know enough about the story. We actually got to hear Florence speak in person years and years and years ago. And she talked about the reason she started the book was because she got married. She married a guy with a lot of money. Their marriage was actually recognized and put on the cover of Time magazine when they got married, because he was old school money from the East Coast, and she's this high school teacher who found this rich prince, and kind of a
fairy
tale kind of story. And she talks about how they got married and they're on their honeymoon, and they're in Hawaii, right? And she's sitting on the beach eating grapes on the beach in Hawaii. This is kind of a cool thing, right? When her husband walks up to her and says, would you like me to teach you how to eat those correctly? And she looked up at him and said, will it change the way they taste? He's like, no. He said, then I don't care. That in itself, that one illustration is the differences in two different personalities. Because he was a certain personality, she was a certain personality, and it came roaring through. Now, in their case, it harmed their marriage because they didn't understand that. So they lived 10 years of what she called a hellish marriage. And at the end of 10 years, she's like, I'm doing some research because one of us is wrong. Ever felt that way? I mean, seriously, have you ever felt that way? So what came out of that research, what came out of that desperation to find out if she's right or wrong, was finding out that they neither one were right and they neither one were wrong. They just were different. And came out of that was the book Personality Plus, which we use a lot. I use it for our family. I used it in ministry when I was the senior pastor of church. I'd make my leaders read Personality Plus. One, to discover what their personality was, but two, to be able to recognize in the room that they're dealing with, so we can collaborate better, so we know how to relate to one another on a deeper scale and a better scale. Because if I'm in a room more than 15 minutes, I can tell you just about what everyone in the room is, personality-wise, because I've studied it enough. And we want you need to study your wife and your husband's personality. You need to study each other. Remember we talked about that in the last unit, studying one another? One of the biggest things you can study is their personality. So we want to highlight, Florence lists 4 different personality types. And there's a gazillion different blends of those 4 types, but the basics of them. So we want to highlight each one, tell you a little bit about the strength, a little bit about the weakness of each character, of the personality, and then we want to talk to you about how to look at yourself and look at your spouse and work together in regard to that. You want to kind of take the lead on that for a few minutes? Sure.
As we talk about these, we're going to remember that the main goal and the reason we like Florence's book the most is because she talks about becoming a well-rounded person. So even though you may take the personality test and come out to be one thing, it doesn't mean you have to stay in that
Right.
box.
Right.
In fact, it's encouraged that you learn to grow and become well-rounded in all the personality
Yes.
traits. It's just helpful for your life. So we want that to be like the focus, okay? We're trying to be well-rounded people. So she gives 4 personality types. Your sanguine is the fun-loving person.
Yes.
This is my sanguine. Well, at least he used to be.
Well, I'm still sanguine. I've changed some, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But the sanguine is the person who's like, I am here, and it is time to party.
Yeah.
Even when there's not a party.
That's right.
You know, they're that person. They're the ones. They're the fun one. They're the life of the party. They're the one that everyone wants to see because they're so enjoyable. And but they're also the flaw. So sanguine is when everybody starts to work to clean up the party, you can't find them.
Yeah.
They're
That's
not
true.
there. They're
That's true.
gone
Yep.
because they did their part. They made the party great,
Fun. Yeah.
and now they're history. So there's flaws to that character.
Yeah.
There typically are people who are very lovable, very kind, very generous, but not always reliable.
Right.
Because to them, it's all about the party. It's not about all the stuff that makes the party happen.
They tend to exaggerate.
Yeah.
So they're not exaggerating because they want to lie to you.
Right.
They're just exaggerating because they want it to be the biggest and best and most fun thing that you've ever done. And so they just tend to exaggerate a little. So you have to know that about them and be able to take it with a grain of salt. So then the next one would be clerics. Clerics are the in-charge people. They are the type A people. They are the ones who run businesses and are very, very successful because they are very in the lead. They are they are organized and on top of it and doing their thing. And it needs to be right for a cleric.
Yeah.
It
Right.
needs to be
Sorry.
their way right for a cleric.
Raise your hand if you ever heard this phrase. It's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
If you ever heard that phrase from your mom, your dad, whoever,
That
that's
was
your
the
cleric. That's the one. And that's what they do. They're like a bull in the china shop. They will just forge forward. Doesn't matter what they do.
Yeah.
There's a book that I like. I'm not going to give the name of the author because we're not throwing out resources. But there's a book that this guy talks about when he, before he learned his personality type. They said, well, where's this guy at? I said, well, watch for the carnage. Just follow the carnage and you'll find this guy, because he was a full-on choleric. And so he didn't care if he offended someone, hurt someone, did anything. So he left a wake of carnage of hurt feelings and emotions and people quitting and all that in his job that he had because he was full-on choleric.
Yeah,
that's the big
the
flaw.
danger and the fly.
Yeah.
Yeah, a choleric will get rid of the fly on the end of your nose with an axe. He's just cut to the chase. That's how a cleric is. Then there are phlegmatics.
Yeah.
Phlegmatics are the laid back people in your life. They're just floating along, enjoying. They're not stressed. They're just whatever, they can tend to be labeled as lazy. They're not, but they just sort of trying to find the easiest way to do something, and the less effort they have to put forth, the better in their book. They're just easygoing.
Yeah, phlegmatics' goal is to live stress-free.
Yes.
It's the least stress is the better thing for them, and they, like Leslie said, they tend to be looked at as lazy or
non-motivated,
unambitious.
Yeah.
Which is not true because inside they really are, but they just don't have that.
They don't have the choleric push
thing
for
to
it.
push for that. They may want that, but they don't have that to do that. They're also the hardest person to read.
Yeah.
As far as personality goes, because they tend to be the more well-rounded person, and so they may have moments of a cleric, they may have moments of a sanguine, they have moments of a melancholy, which we'll talk about in a second. They may have moments of the other personalities. They're the hardest to read because they actually are the most well-rounded to begin with.
Right.
And so because they're so laid back, and so they're really the hard person. And so if you have someone in your life that's like, which personality are they? I can't quite put my thumb on it. They're probably your phlegmatic. Yeah. And then the next personality that I refer to already is called melancholy.
Yeah.
Melancholy is the person that is the detail-oriented, precise. You have to have the T's crossed, the I's dotted.
It needs to be right.
The writing's got to be right. The grammar's got to be right. The email they sent you has no mistakes.
They read the directions for everything.
Oh, who are these people? They're
And they have 4 different colored pens
in their pocket,
in
with
their
the
pocket
protector.
or in their purse.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
And that's not negative. It's just who
They're
are.
well prepared. They're very well prepared.
Yeah.
The flaw to a melancholy is sometimes they overthink things.
Yeah.
And they'll overthink it to the point where they're immobilized and
Yeah.
they can't do anything.
Yeah.
And so that's a downfall.
Yeah.
Among others. But so now you may go, well, I sound like some of those. I mean, like several of those.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so there are combinations.
Sure.
A lot of people tend to be like a melancholy choleric together. So they're detailed, they're in charge, they're getting it right, and they're moving forward. And those people are usually fairly successful people.
Yeah.
Melancholy can sometimes drain the power out of a choleric. So you just have to get those things working together
Right.
the best. Sanguine phlegmatics tend to kind of go together also. Because they're laid back, they're not worried about anything. Let's have fun. So they're they kind of go together well too. When you end up with a situation that's a little bit challenging is when there's a cross. So if you have a phlegmatic choleric or a choleric phlegmatic, however you want to look at it, they're in charge in spurts, but they're still laid back. They're overall a very laid back person, but every once in a while they just kind of charge out, and you're like, that's really strange. And in their mind, they're challenged by that too, because they're like, that's not me. Why am I doing that? But they have that combination going,
Sure.
which is odd. My sister and my daughter tend to be that way, where they are very phlegmatic, laid back, and they're great. And then they just have moments or certain areas where they are very choleric, very in charge and getting it done. So that's one that is a cross that's really good. And then the sanguine melancholy can be challenging because they want to have fun, but they're quiet melancholies.
Right.
They're doing the details, but they want to have fun and be outgoing. And so it's challenging to them too, because
Sure.
they're two kind of opposing things in their own personality.
Yeah. And when you start out and you get this, Leslie already talked about this, but I want to readdress it. One of the things that we really appreciate about Personality Plus and Mrs. Latauer and how she did it was most of the personality types and tests that you do now, the books you read, and they're like, this is who you are, this is what you are, deal with it, and you're never going to change. This is who you are. These are your strengths, these are your weaknesses, and that's just the way you're going to be. That's not her approach. She brought a godly approach to it. She brought scripture to it, and she's like, this is who you are, but you can change. It'll be effort. You have to make the effort. You can change. For example, when we got married, I was a sanguine choleric.
Yes.
So I wanted to party, I wanted to play, but I want to do it my way. We're going to do the party. We're going to have a great time, but we're going to do the party the way I want to do the party, whether you all like it or not.
Yeah.
That was me. And so I was a sanguine choleric and more sanguine.
I would say he
choleric.
was like 80 to 90% sanguine.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just that little bit more choleric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And today, I'm probably a whole lot more choleric. And here's what's scary. I had no melancholy back then. Zero melancholy. I could care less about the detail. I didn't, that's fine. I don't read directions. That's why I was joking about that earlier. None of that. Now I have melancholy when I read in the test most recently. I have melancholy in there because now I am detailed.
Yeah.
Now I do care about the structure. Now I do care about the schedule that we talked about in the last unit. I care about those things. So I have added an element to my personality that was not there 30 years ago when we got married. And matter of fact, there's times now when I'm doing things, because my wife is choleric, melancholy. And there's some, when I'm doing stuff, she's like, what happened here? Because I'm trying to have more fun and you're being this other person. You're being me and I'm being you, because we've done enough long term that I have some choleric and melancholy that come out now. I still like to have fun. If you haven't noticed that in the video, you're not listening. I want to enjoy myself and have a good time, but I'm really concerned about the details, the structure, and I want to get things accomplished.
I think for him to become a successful husband, father, and pastor, and all the things that he was trying to do, business person, anything that he was trying to do, if he wanted to be successful, he had to pull out the choleric tendencies for that to work. And he has still enjoyed to have time to be a sanguine, to be more fun and party and all that kind of thing, but it was important to him to pull out his choleric.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he has kind of done a flip-flop on us, and then, like you said, added some melancholy. Now, when we were married, I was melancholy, choleric, I really wanted it to be done, and I really wanted it to be done my way, and I wanted every detail to be right. And it all needed to be right. I was very tense about that.
Can you say uptight?
I was very uptight and very tense. And like I told you about the car rides,
Yep.
he was trying to get me to flex. But now I would say that my phlegmatic is so in place because I can be so laid back about things I never would have been laid back about before. But I've just learned to mellow. I have mellowed out. And so even though, yes, I am detailed, like I'm the one writing down all the outlines and making sure we got everything in order, I'm detailed. And I really want it to be my way, but I can bend and I can allow someone else to have their way now. And I can lay back and just say, okay, yeah, whatever we're going to do, that's great. And I'm going to go with it. And so there's a mellowing, I think, of your personalities and a melding together of them as you grow and as you get older, and as you learn one another.
Right.
Because I needed my personality to work with his personality.
Right.
And so we're both choleric in there. And so in our household, even though we both are choleric, we tend to be in agreement about most things. Every once in a while, he wants something done differently than I think it should be done. So I have to learn and I have to submit myself, which is another lesson we had earlier in another course, submit myself to what he wants because he's the head of our household. And I allow his choleric to override mine, not because I'm being walked on, but because I'm willing to allow him to lead our family. Yeah. And I can share and my ideas, and then he can weigh what is the best thing for us to do. Yeah.
And really the main reason that we're recommending you read this book, that you learn personality traits and who you are and who your spouse is not so you can go, you are melancholy, you're a choleric, what's your problem? None of that. It's so you can love one another better, so you can grow better. Because now you can look at the differences in personality, and instead of driving you crazy and making you batty, you can look at it and go, oh, that's how they're wired. That's part of their DNA. That's how God put them together. And now, and there's areas of that you feel like you need to address. You can have that conversation, but it's not a hurtful conversation. Now it's an intelligent conversation, educated conversation that you help one another to become more well-rounded.
So I'm going to say that when I'm trying to interact with Brian, I know that he has sanguine and he has choleric going on. I know that a choleric really wants everything to be their idea. So when I go to present something to him about what I think our family should do, I will bring it to him and I'll say, what do you think about this? Because I'm letting him develop it as his own idea. But if I just charge in and say, we need to do this, he's going to go, and he's going to get his back up and he's going to be all upset because I presented it wrong. It's just a matter of learning how to deal with him. Now, when he's telling me a story and I'm listening to how it's going and he's all excited about the story, I know his sanguine's in full. And so if he's exaggerating a little bit because he's making the story fun and big, I understand that. I'm not holding it against him because my melancholy says, okay, you got 5 things wrong, and why did you say it that way? But I don't need to be offended at him because I know who he is, and I know that it wasn't his intent to be wrong or to hurt me or to tell an untruth to me. He's just sharing the story in full big regalia. And so it helps me understand how to deal with him when that happens.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, not at the moment. I don't. We hope that this really helps you. We hope you get the book. We'll put that resource in the end of this course and with the units, and we'll put some other things about personalities in there as well. We got more units to go. We're going to talk about some other things as we move forward about love languages and some other things like that, because we're trying to give you all the resources, all the tools that you need as you're launching your marriage, as you're moving forward in this thing called marriage, this marathon that's called marriage. As you're moving forward, we're trying to put things in your hands now, early in your marriage. We'll talk to some of y'all that have been married for longer than just a short period of time. You already have kids and in different stages and seasons of your life. We're going to address those courses for you as well. But right now we're addressing you young couples that are just really getting your life going, just getting your marriage going. We want to help put you on a solid foundation so that your marriage is successful. And one of the best things you can do is learn how to relate to one another. And one of the ways to do that is through this learning of personality. So again, hope this has been great value to you guys. We are looking forward to talking to you again. We will see you in the next unit here in the Secret to Growing Your Marriage. And we'll have resources for you at the end. And we are so excited to just be a part of your life and be able to encourage you and bless you. And hopefully you're getting great value from what we're sharing with you. We will talk to you soon. Talk to you in the next unit.